Who is the Wandering Monk, and what path did they take? GenCon 2023 wrapped up about a week ago, and there's some exciting HeroQuest news. I don't think that I'm the only one that's expecting to see some Prophecy of Teller stuff there, but what we got instead was another hero pack, and this one is the Path of the Wandering Monk. I'm not sure who in the community took these pictures, but I was not at GenCon. So here's the first picture we have of him. One thing I'd like to say is that I really like this box, how they're in a display stand already, and I'm pretty sure that that's how it's going to be shipped to you as well. Reminds me of how some action figures are. There's actually a male sculpt and a female sculpt, and they're entirely different. With the Rogue and the original Knight, they look like pretty much the same thing, but this one gives them a distinct personality, which I really love. Before I get too deep into the mechanics, one thing I will say with this is that some people might think, oh no, this is too much D&D elements invading the game. But let me remind you that this is just another fantasy trope, and this is the same type of thing that the community's been homebrewing for the last 30 years. So, like a lot of products, if you don't like it, just don't buy it, and you can just play the original stuff and have no problems. So you might notice that the two monks are sitting on something called the World's End Tournament. Warriors, heed the call and test your mettle for glory and gold. And there's an image of a Colosseum. This ties into a really cool display they had set up, but that's for later. The other side of that scroll is this: Tournament, First Summer Moon, Avoid the Wilds. And there's some kind of path here with different locations on it throughout the world. What we don't know is whether this is a monk that's been tracking the exploits of the previous party and is trying to find them, or if this is a monk that has their own adventure and is finally going to meet up at this tournament. But the first summer moon makes me think of the dread moon itself, which is the summer solstice. Also, pay attention to the symbol here that comes in later. These are pictures from the artist, but this is the display that they had a bunch of miniatures in. And this is a big old Colosseum, and I love this thing. They did a fantastic job on it. There's also plastic elements from the game that you might recognize, like this is the Zargon shield symbol. This I believe is from Mage of the Mirror, and that looks to be the Frozen Horror symbol. And this diorama was quite well done, and looks even cooler with miniatures in it. Here's one image of what it looks like, and they actually changed the scene depending on which day it was, and apparently there was a secret hidden in the day 4 one, which I'm not sure if we found or not yet, and Carman has not given us an answer. But you may see that it's populated with mythic heroes, as well as some prototype things. That's not an indication of anything to come, it's just miniatures that they had to populate this thing with, and they obviously didn't want to use other brands' miniatures. That would make no sense when they're trying to promote Hasbro products. One eagle-eyed viewer pointed out that the Colosseum has motifs that reminds them of the new ogres. That skull right there and the skull on their belt is nearly identical. And they were also looking at a symbol on the box, which pretty much matches the ogre throne. This has made the community wonder if the Monk Hero Pack is going to be the lead up into Against the Ogre Horde, which is one of the old quest packs that is hard to get a hold of. When it comes to skills and cards itself, we do have a few pictures. Using elemental styles. Each elemental style contains 2 techniques that can be found on either side of this card. Once per turn, choose one technique to activate. After you use a technique, that elemental style is exhausted. The elemental style of fire cannot be used until you've exhausted air, earth, and water. If there's no monsters in your line of sight at the start of your turn, recover all exhausted elemental styles. So rather than using key points or anything like that to keep track of, HeroQuest again uses cards similar to the wizard spells. I really like this, and it's different elemental styles, again similar to spells. First one we have is Tidal Surge. Activate this technique on your turn to split your total movement roll before and after your action. After use, the elemental style of water is exhausted. Oh, that's kind of cool. So that really does work a little bit more like how D&D's standard turns work, and might be how some people want to play the game at times. I'm not sure what this one below it is, but we do have a pre-order to look at later that might tell us. You are the monk, a student of unarmed combat techniques formed in reverence of the elements. You refuse to use armor or shields, instead relying on your heightened grace and agility. You may only wield daggers, crossbows, hand axes, short swords, and staffs. Touch of Endless Inferno. As an action, inflict 1 body point of damage to any one adjacent enemy. The target takes an additional 2 body points of damage at the end of its next turn. All these spells are the same of after use exhausted. I'm guessing this one is Strength of Mountain. Roll 2 additional attack dice on an unarmed attack. And that's a plant one, looks like. Or earth, I should say. Soaring Dragon. Automatically succeed when jumping over a trap. The one that's below it is as an action, make 1 armed attack against all adjacent enemies. This technique enables you to attack diagonally. Oh, that one would be really cool. Especially if you have a lot of enemies all kind of surrounding you and you're just swarmed in a room. That would be able to help you immensely. Though that would be a lot of dice to roll at once. Then again, that's when board games are fun, when you're just rolling ridiculous amounts of dice and doing a crazy amount of damage. These are a couple close-ups of the Colosseum with the monks in it, and their symbol is kind of interesting, with all the 4 elements represented, a bunch of flowing designs and how they're all connected together. And next, we get to something that currently is a campaign exclusive, but the employees of Avalon Hill have said that this is intended to not be only exclusive to GenCon. So don't be like some people and fork out $375 just for some dice and a cool dice scroll. But yeah, they're fancy purple dread dice that go with Rise of the Dread Moon, as well as a scroll that rolls out and you can roll your dice on that. So it's a dice tray of sorts, though it doesn't have sides. Another campaign goodie that they had was a printout of Nightfall, which is a prequel quest for Rise of the Dread Moon that was released on HeroQuest Day. Of course, there were plenty of games to buy. They had both Rise of the Dread Moon and Mage of the Mirror here for HeroQuest, as well as the last of the original print run for the base game, which is the larger size box with the annoying tray that's very tight on miniatures. Let's check out this pre-order. This is going to be something that's coming in January 15th, 2024. Let's look at the description first. No, not the path, but the reason you walk it. Walk in the Wise Monk Hero's shoes and expand your HeroQuest adventure with the Path of the Wandering Monk figures. The graceful monk hero is a student of unarmed combat techniques, formed in reverence to the 4 elements. This collector's edition item, weird that they phrased it that way, includes 2 highly detailed monk figures with powers and skills not seen in HeroQuest characters. It also includes 7 game cards and a scroll. I'm not going to be reading all of this because again it seems like they're doing some repetition for SEO purposes. Each side of the 4 double-sided ability cards features an elemental styles combat technique and reveals a unique advantage you acquire when playing as the monk character. And our first image here is of some of the stuff that we saw already. The second one is a close-up image of the female monk. She has a water skin, it looks like, along her belt. She has a staff that she's wielding, and is wearing some kind of martial arts robe. The male, on the other hand, is unarmed. He's shirtless. He has a bunch of scars on his back, which look like they're whip scars. He's very ripped, of course, similar to the barbarian, and on his hip appears to be some sort of dagger. He also has 1 eye patch, which is an interesting, unique detail with him. Next, we have an image of the male's card here. Monk, 1 attack dice, which has a star there, 3 defend dice, 6 body points, and 4 mind points. Movement is 2 dice. The asterisk is to indicate when attacking unarmed, roll 1 additional attack dice. So that's assuming that when he's using his dagger, that's only 1 attack dice. But let's say he's going unarmed and he's using one of his elemental styles, that's when you use 2, I believe. Another image of the male there. And you can see the same sort of throne that looks down upon them in this arena, this Colosseum of sorts. Path of the Wandering Monk, a student of unarmed combat techniques crafted in reverence of the elements, uncompromising, yet merciful, ruled by wisdom and discipline. That's some cool decorations on the box, and I do like how they've gone for a different text style. And the back of the box confirms that you do get the display thing. Remove the scroll figures and cardboard inserts found inside the box to reveal the game cards. Replace the scene insert to display your figures. So that's cool. It would be good for some collectors who maybe want this just to sit on their shelf. Let's say they buy 1 copy unopened, 1 to sit on their shelf opened with the display thing, and 1 to play with. And just like the Rogue, it's going to be freely available at retail. So buying a bunch of copies doesn't affect anybody. We can see a couple more elemental styles here. Burning Spirit. As an action, expel a beam of brilliant energy from your soul's core. This beam may be straight or diagonal, and continues until it meets a wall or closed door. Each enemy in the beam takes 2 body points of damage. The female's card we can see here, she has 1 attack dice, 3 defend dice, 6 body points, 4 mind points, exactly the same as the other monk, but it's interesting that her card doesn't have an asterisk, yet it still has the asterisk thing on the bottom. I'm guessing that was an oversight with their concept, and hopefully it'll be fixed for the actual product. And you can see the artwork right here on the front. Nice looking design on the side. Speak with Stone. Search for secret doors and traps as 1 action. That's kind of a home rule that a lot of people have, so it maybe wasn't necessary, but then again, not everybody has the same home rules, and some people do like playing exactly as the rules command, so it introduces that as a mechanic within the game itself, except it's confined to the monk. Another thing that I need to speak about at GenCon is that Kurgan, whom you may know as Home of HeroQuest fans, really great member of the community. He has a Discord that I frequent quite often. He actually got some interviews with Avalon Hill staff members, including Carmine, who you may know as Chris, and Patrick, both on the team, and I got him to ask Chris an interesting question about what the hardest challenge about reviving HeroQuest was. And the answer kind of surprised me. It wasn't anything about the rights or the licensing or designing it. It was using quantitative data to convince the Hasbro higher-ups that this was a profitable game, and that the community was passionate enough about the product for it to be worth bringing back. Another thing that happened just a couple days before I started recording this video is that Rise of the Dread Moon is now in the companion app. That's actually where some of the Ragnar artwork went, so it's not just concept art that they used internally, it's also within the app now. There's probably more to speak about on GenCon, but these last couple things aren't directly related to HeroQuest, though still important. Betrayal at House on the Hill had some kind of Christmas-themed expansion coming up, and Renegade Games confirmed the return of HeroScape Age of Annihilation. If you may remember from my post-con video last year, that failed, but it seems like a different game studio is going to be bringing that back. So that's exciting for the HeroScape fans, and possibly HeroQuest fans as well, if they want to homer some stuff in. Unless I missed something, I think that that's all the major news from GenCon 2023 about HeroQuest. But it sounds like Avalon Hill has some exciting stuff coming in the future, and I'm also glad that Rise of the Dread Moon went well for them, considering that it was their first expansion that they made entirely on their own. Thanks for watching, goodbye.